You're the vice president. You never get
I don't have to do anything, right?
I'm gonna nominate you again for that job.
You get a pay raise?
Nope, same money.
Nice to meet you, Leanne. Tab McKinney, Superintendent. Glad to have you. Feel free to ask questions when it's all over. Anybody you need.
Are you going to be talking about the executive session?
No, that's executive.
No, I'm good. I got the car. They're sick. Well, it's like, I want to talk to you. But I can't.
No, in this case, it's a prospective lease agreement with the city over the new civic center. Do you know about that? Well, you'll have to educate yourself on that. There's some articles over the last 4 or 5 months the Chronicle has done about that.
Hey,
You read those over, and then if you got questions, I'll answer.
Spike.
No. Well, there's a change of mayor in Gas City at the turn of the year, so there's some political. Yeah.
You got the secretary job. Secretary job got signed on the contract.
I am wonderful. I'm liking the warm weather for a change, although it's not warm out right now. Yes, it does. I told him it does.
You got the gavel, you want to hit it? I'll take over until we get a... Okay, I want to call this meeting to order. First meeting of the Mississinewa Board of School Trustees for 2020 will now come to order, and I'd ask everyone to stand as we have a word of prayer by Mr. Cunningham and the pledge to follow.
Let us pray. Gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity to be here, Lord, for the opportunity to make decisions about the welfare of our children, to be able to advance education, Lord, and to bring them into the new century. We just ask that you would watch over and guide and protect us as we make those decisions. Allow it to be your will that we make these, Lord. Also, Lord, for our servicemen and women who continue to put themselves in harm's way to keep us safe, Lord, particularly in these trying times, that you would just watch over and protect them, Lord. They put themselves there to keep us safe, and we just ask you watch over and protect them, Lord. We ask you guide us again as we make decisions this evening, and just be with us in your name. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Cunningham.
You're most welcome, sir.
Okay, before we begin the business for this evening, I would like to take this opportunity to recognize the large group of young people we have with us this evening. We have the R.J. Baskett Middle School Student Council with us. We're so glad that you were able to make it. You picked a good meeting to be at because we're electing new officers for 2020 on the school board, so that's kind of a unique experience that only happens once a year. And I think it's always good for young people to see how parliamentary procedure works in the real setting. And it's an opportunity for you to see the kinds of issues that the school board will take up and how they vote on those issues. So also a big thank you to Mrs. Johns and Mr. Fritchman, your supervisors and sponsors of Student Council. We're glad that you were able to make it this evening. So let's get to the first item of business, which is to reorganization of the school board officers. And so we will now elect the president of the Mississinewa Board of School Trustees for this calendar year of 2020. For a person to be elected to any office on this board, they must receive a majority of votes, which would be 4 votes in our case. Once a person has been nominated for an office, it is not necessary to have a second for the nomination. Nominations are now open for president of the board.
Mr. Superintendent,
Yes.
I'd like to nominate Spike Gaskin as our president. He's done a fine job.
Okay. We have Mr. Gaskin nominated for president. Are there further nominations? Any other nominations for president? Okay, hearing no further nominations, nominations are closed. We have Mr. Wayne Gaskin nominated for president. Please show your vote by raising your right hand. All those in favor of Mr. Gaskin, please raise your right hand at this time. All opposed, same sign. Okay, congratulations, Mr. Gaskin. You are president for another year,
Don't let you guys
in
ready for
2020. So I'll let you take over the meeting at this
Okay.
point.
We'll move on down to vice president. We'll take nominations. Same rules apply for all. We got 2 nominations to do. So, nomination for vice president. No probably wasn't.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I nominate Denny Smith for
Dennis.
vice president.
Okay. Are there any others? Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor, raise your right hand.
Do I vote?
Yeah, you vote, sure. Unless you, listen. Okay, Mr. Vice President. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Mr.
Yep.
Smith.
Okay, we'll move on down to the secretary's position. Nominations for secretary.
Mr. President, I'd like to nominate Susan Miller.
Are there any other nominations? Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor of Susan Miller for secretary, raise their right hand. Me too. Okay, congratulations.
Congratulations, Mrs. Miller.
Okay, this first part, it's kind of like a business meeting, because we got a lot of things we just have to move through, so. Item number 4, 2020 Corporation Treasury, extracurricular treasurer, Mr. McKenzie.
Yes, we would recommend Mrs. Townsend as the corporation treasurer and Mrs. Edwards as the extracurricular treasurer for 2020.
Okay. For the superintendent's recommendations, what's the board's pleasure?
Mr. President,
Mr. Miller.
I'll make a motion that we appoint Mrs. Townsend as treasurer and Mrs. Edwards as extracurricular treasurer.
Okay, got a motion, need a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Rivera. Are there any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
It's been a while, huh? Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Item number 5, 2020 legislative liaison. I know who I'd like to do this. Chris.
I don't know if I have a recommendation, but I'd recommend Mr. Cunningham. He's done a great job over the last few years, so
Certainly has.
I'll leave it to the board, though.
Okay.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mrs.
I'll
Miller.
make a motion that we appoint Chris Cunningham as our legislative liaison.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Crouch. Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. For you guys who don't know, we go to meetings, he's already so far ahead, somebody don't even benefits to go there, because he keeps us updated on all legislative stuff, comes through everything. Okay, item number 6, legal firm retention. Mr. McKenzie.
Yes, we would recommend the board approve Kylie Harker and Certain as the corporation legal firm for 2020.
Okay,
Mr. President,
Mr. Cunningham.
I make a motion to follow the superintendent's recommendation.
Okay, I need a second.
Second.
Mr. Smith. Okay. Got a motion properly seconded. Any questions? Any comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Item 7, minutes.
We would recommend approval of the minutes as presented this evening.
Mr. President, I want to keep my record intact.
What a surprise.
Yeah. I make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
I about took his breath away, didn't I?
Yeah.
Okay, we got a motion made, need a second.
I'll second.
Mrs.
Miller.
Miller, okay. Okay, motion made, properly seconded. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Item 8, conflict of interest disclosure, Mr. McKenzie.
Yes, Mr. President, we recommend approval for the uniform conflict of interest disclosure statements for 2020 for Mr. Cunningham, Mrs. Townsend, and Mr. Smith as presented.
Okay. Well, since you two guys are, you want to abstain with these, Kim? No, both you guys?
Yeah, I would
We got
abstain.
enough guys? We got enough?
We do.
Okay.
We gotta throw a woman in there, but, you know, we gotta a few guys.
Do we have enough to do that? Okay.
We do.
All right. Need a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept the disclosure, what is it called?
Conflict of interest.
Conflict of interest disclosures as presented.
Okay, need a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, any comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign. I'll go with the majority that makes, okay?
Yep.
Show me as an aye then. Okay, transfer appropriations resolution.
Mrs. Townsend.
That would be me, yes. So at the end of every calendar year, I bring to you accounts that are in the red that we can transfer from those accounts that are in the black. And tonight I have 3 accounts in the education fund and 3 accounts in the operations fund that I am asking permission that you transfer by resolution, please.
Okay. What's the board's pleasure? Need a motion.
Mr. President,
Mr. Smith.
make a motion to transfer the appropriations resolution as presented.
Okay. Need a second?
Second.
Mr. Crouch. Are there any questions or comments? Transfer appropriations resolution. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item 10, 2020 Board Administrative Conferences in motion. Mr.
Yes, we would recommend approval of all board members and central office administrators to all appropriate conferences in 2020.
Okay, need a motion?
Mr. President. Everybody's so eager.
Okay, got a motion? Yes.
Make a motion to approve the 2020 board and administrative conferences.
Okay, need a second?
Second.
Okay. Motion made, probably seconded. Are there any questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item 11, 2020 federal and state program applications.
Yes, we recommend approval for the administration to make application for all appropriate state and federal grant programs in the year 2020.
Okay.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Dunn.
so moved.
Okay, second.
I'll second.
Okay, not to make light of this, it's just things we have to do to get organized, so. Got a motion and properly seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same, motion carries. Item 12, 2020-21 school board meeting dates. Mr. McKenzie.
Yes, contained within your packet is an outline of future board meeting dates that carry us through the end of December of 2021. And I just want to, before you vote on that, I just want to go over it quickly with you. It's very similar to what we've had. It picks up in July of 2020. We've already established our meeting dates prior to July of 2020 for the from January through the end of June of this current year. We typically only have one meeting in July because we typically have all our board meetings on the first Monday and the third Monday of each month. And there are some exceptions to that, and I want to go over that. And one of the exceptions has tended to be July because that's right around the 4th. So we tend to stay away from that, plus we shut down the central office around that time anyway for a few days. So I would recommend that we continue with that practice. August will be the first Monday and the third Monday of August. In September, the first Monday tends to be Labor Day. So we stay away from that, and we tend to have back-to-back meetings because Mrs. Townsend needs those for her budget meetings. So I would recommend we stay with that. October, the third Monday of the month tends to fall over fall break. So again, I would recommend that we stick with the practice of back-to-back meetings in October. November has first Monday and third Monday of November, and right now we've got the first Monday and second Monday of December because we start to get into Christmas break on the third Monday of December. So I would recommend, at least for 2020, that you stay with that. January will be back-to-back because the first Monday of January tends to be coming off break, and a lot of our people are on vacations over that period of time, over the Christmas vacation, and it just makes it really hard for us to put the packet together. Not that we couldn't, but my recommendation is that we stay with the second and third Mondays of January as we're doing this year. February would be the first and Monday and third Monday of February. Same with March, same with April. May and June would all be the first and third Monday of the month. And then July 19th of 2021, I would recommend that just be one meeting once again. August would be the first and third Monday of August. September of 2021 would be the second and third Mondays because of Labor Day. And again, it says the 18th, but I would recommend that we change the 18th to the 11th and go with the 4th and the 11th, the first and second Monday of October, just to stay away from any possible conflict with fall break. November would be the first and third Monday. December, I would leave it like it stands. Even though you could possibly get into Christmas break, I kind of think that we might end up having school on that Monday, December 20th of 2021, just because that's still pretty far away from Christmas Day. So, and on any of these, the board can change the meeting if circumstances come up that would necessitate that, or you would feel it's important to make that change. You always have that right as a board. So, but it's good for the public to get a projection of meeting times and get into that routine of thought as to when those meetings are going to be. So these recommendations are very similar to what you currently have been operating under. So I would recommend approval as presented.
Okay. The board?
Mr. President,
Danny, get paid overtime. You with me? Yes, sir.
make a motion to approve the school board meeting dates as presented for 2021.
Need a second?
I'll second.
Conrad? Okay. Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item 13, overnight band trip approval. Okay.
Yes, Mr. Bear is here this evening, and he's come to, I think there was some description of this trip in your board packet, and so he's here just to kind of give you a little bit of overview and then answer any questions you might have. I think the board is of the mindset that I know Mrs. Winter and I are of this mindset, and the principals, that any kind of cultural, educational experience outside the classroom doors that we can give our kids in our community, and we have adults, responsible adults, supervising them and helping provide them those special kinds of educational opportunities, I say we welcome that. So, Mr. Bear, if you want to step up to the microphone, because we're being recorded, and we don't want anybody to miss a word of what you might have to say. And we're so happy that you are back as a member of the Mississinewa family, and we're glad you're here tonight.
Yep.
So,
Well, good evening. I think all of you got a copy of our itinerary, tentative itinerary, and just a letter briefly describing our trip. We put together a very exciting trip to St. Louis. We wanted to offer a substantial trip, but not a week-long trip this year. So it's I believe a 4-day, 3-night trip. Anytime we've traveled with the band in the past, we've used the same gentleman. His name is Mr. Dave Debus. I'm very confident in what he has done for us in the past and what he's already done for us this year. He's already been to St. Louis and has already looked at several hotels and is finding the best activities and the best facilities for us to be there. But as you can see, activities including the Arch, of course, in St. Louis, and the zoo and the City Museum, which is a wonderful place fairly new attraction there. Dinner theaters, riverboat cruises, performance at Six Flags. What I'm excited about with this trip, because we've done a lot of them in the past, but this is the first time we've ever combined the band and the choir here at Mississinewa, and so I think that's kind of unique this year, and it's been fun to be working with Mrs. Walters and getting her input on this. We started meeting this past summer and have been working on it ever since. So I'm very excited about it, and if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer any.
I took a similar trip to this with some juniors and seniors. We had a great time. We really did. It was really worthwhile. Lifetime memory. Yeah, great.
Well, I'm glad because you got a lot of kids. If you're ever going to any concerts and stuff, kids move back and forth between the choir and the band. You have a lot of, and that's really nice to be able to I think it's a good way to build your program and yeah, say, the good things to say. Looks like to me it's well laid out. Anybody else?
I guess I just had a question. I support, it looks like a great trip, but the cost, have you been working on fundraisers then, or do you see costs as being an issue for the kids?
We're always concerned about it,
Yeah.
and in the past we've always been able to, help out, because there's a lot of considerations. I always want to help with parent chaperones. We always want to help with student families with more than one child, but we've also always been able to help others who have come and said, I'd really like to go and I just can't. And to answer your question about the fundraisers, yes, we've been fundraising this year so far, not specifically for the trip, but for our funds, which will help offset the costs of some of the ones I just mentioned. And then we have lots of them kind of in the works now that we'll hit the ground running with your approval of the trip from between now and when we travel.
Anybody else from the? All we gotta do is vote on it then, huh?
Yes, our recommendation is for the board to approve this trip by the band program.
Need a motion from the board?
Mr. President,
Mr. Crouch.
I move that we approve the overnight band trip approval.
Need a second?
I'll second.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Congratulations, you got a trip. Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, thank you, Mr. Bear, for being here tonight and providing this opportunity for our children that are in band, our students that are in band. You guys don't like to be
Mr.
called
President.
children now, do you?
Yes.
Do you suppose we could slow this down just a bit? Because we have these kids here.
Okay.
I want them to get the most they can get out of what we're doing up here.
Well, I think now we're to the point where we can.
Yeah. I want to talk to you just a moment. You okay with that?
I'm sure.
Okay. We have an agenda, right? Do you understand that we are just the adult version of what you are at school? And so your advisors will get together, as these people do with us, and they will make recommendations. And you will, as we have done here, you'll choose your president and vice president, perhaps, however you guys do it. You'll elect them, and then you will be voting, probably, on what you want to do. And there's an agenda. This is our agenda. We follow it. And you must, if you want, you go to your advisor and say, I would like to talk about this issue. And then they might, put it on the agenda, whatever that issue is. And that's how you get something to talk about, something that concerns you guys, something that is important to you in your school. And so you take it to your advisors, you get on the agenda, and then you conduct a meeting similar to what this is. And so you've watched us do this. This is all just formalities of setting up for the rest of the year. But we will now, as our president has said, we will now step into some important things, as we just did with the band trip. The band and the choral group get together and they want approval to go do this. And so when you want to do something exciting at RJB, then you bring it to your advisors, and then you guys kick it around and figure out how you're going to do it, or if there's money involved, how you're going to raise the money. And you kind of guide your school on what they're going to do. So you have a very important job. And I just want you to know, we're not up here, we laugh a lot because we've been together a long time and I think we know what we're doing. And so this is a learning, I want you to feel like this is a learning experience. I want you to know what's going on. And so I want you to feel like it's a meaningful thing to you to be here tonight. Can they ask a question later?
Sure.
If you have questions, after the meeting's over, let's entertain your questions. So be thinking of some questions. How's that? Okay?
Thank you, thank you. I'll just add something to what he said. They get a board packet 3 or 4 days before the meeting, and every item that's on that agenda, there's as much information as I have and the administration has to give them about that agenda item so they can make the best decision as possible. Sometimes the public looks at these kinds of meetings and they see 7-0 votes or 6-0 votes, and they think that they're just doing everything I ask, but that's not really the case. They just have a lot of information to base their decisions on, and the administration and your principals, we try to give them all the information that's possible so that they can make good decisions. So the other thing I'll mention is that Mr. Crouch is the person who was just talking to you, and I bet you could guess what he used to do for a living. He was a school teacher and a social studies school teacher. So he's very passionate about civics education. So, and that's what Student Council is about. It's a civics education opportunity. So I appreciate your remarks, Mr. Crouch.
And another thing, one of the things that you guys use all the time, that your Mac Air computers, this was decided here at this room. You know, we sat down, but did through a lot of legwork. We got so that's the ones you use. That's where it come from, this place right here, with the recommendation from our staff. Anybody else want to say anything? Okay. I guess we're personnel, or that we're...
Yes, and before I talk to you about personnel, I'll just add that next Monday you'll be voting on a future Farmers of America, FFA, will be taking an overnight trip, and she'll be here to talk to you about that, and we'll provide you some information in your packet for this week, for next Monday's meeting. But I'll say more later, but she is doing an awful lot to promote that program and get our kids involved in the extracurriculars of 4-H and those related programs. So we'll be excited to talk to you about that next week. In regards to personnel, we have the following resignations for the board's consideration this evening. Steve Wilson has resigned as varsity assistant football coach effective immediately, and we certainly appreciate the service that Mr. Wilson has provided to Mr. Funk in the football program over the last several years, and he'll be missed. Andy Varner has resigned as the RJ Basket co-ed golf coach effective immediately, and that's because he's taken with board approval, the head varsity golf position for this coming spring. We also have the following new hires for the board's consideration this evening. Kylie Scott to be hired as the RJ Basket Middle School track coach for this spring, effective immediately. Justine May to be hired as the 6th grade girls basketball coach, and Sheila Trent to be hired as a bus driver, effective January 6th of 2020. We would recommend approval of these personnel items as presented this evening.
Okay. Need a motion?
Mr. President?
Chris.
Chris, okay.
I make a motion to approve the personnel recommendations as presented.
Okay, I need a second.
I'll second it.
Danny Smith, are there any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Facilities report, Mr. King.
Yes, Mr. Gosser and I do not have anything to add for this evening under facilities. So if the board has any questions or comments, we'd be happy to address those.
Anything from the board? Okay, hearing none, let's move on to item 16, legislative update.
Yeah. Okay. So, in your packet, So for you guys out there, when we get, I'm doing this, some of them are using iPads, but we get a large board packet and we post it on Google Drive. So we go and we look at everything that we want to review. And so one of the things that's important for us that we start to look at is legislation, new bills that are coming into effect that might affect education, affect funding for you, or affect salaries for teachers, or all different kinds of things. And so this year, there are 56 new proposed bills from the Senate, which is one side, and from the House, which is the other side. So anyway, so there's 56 new ones. The copies of these guys are in your Google Drive. Two that I wanted to highlight for you. One is House Bill 1126, and this is school board member training. So you guys look at us and you say, these old guys up here and they're still getting training? Yes, we're getting training. So they're going to be talking about, this is to provide a training course for school board members. And of course, they're not going so far as to pay for it. They're going to let us pay for it out of our budget. But that's that's one thing I wanted to bring to your attention. And it will be for all newly elected board members after December 31st of 2020. So that's one. The other is House Bill 1158. And that bill provides that beginning June 30th, 2020, the minimal salary for a full-time teacher is not to be less than $50,000 a year. And that effective date for that would be July 1st, 2020. So, and this gets referred to Ways and Means. So any of these bills that we talk about or go through, it has to go over to Ways and Means, because if it has a budgetary impact, Ways and Means has to approve it before it moves anywhere else. So it'd be like if we had something here we wanted to do, we'd have to ask Jill and say, hey, do we have the budget money? She's kind of Ways and Means for us. She looks at it and says, okay, yeah, you have the ability to do it, or no, you don't. So couple things for you guys to know is, right, there's not I don't know how much traction this bill will have, because it will have a fiscal impact, other than that it won't have a legislative fiscal impact. It will have a local school corporation impact. So I don't know how concerned they are about that from that perspective. And then the other bill that I just presented, it has a co-author. So generally when there's two people that are authoring a bill, it has, I think, almost twice as much a chance for that bill to get approved. So we'll see what happens with this one. And I'll try, if you guys want to look at the list and you see one you want to hear about, I'll follow it. If not, just as I see things that come up that I think are important, I'll share them with you. So that's all I got.
Any questions from the board?
Good, thanks.
Comments? Like I said, Chris does an excellent job, stays on top of everything for us. Item 17, grants, donation, corporate sponsors. Mr. McKenzie?
Yes, we have the several donations for the board's consideration this evening. During the month of December, which is the Christmas spirit and the giving season, we had $1,050 donated by several people to the Boomerang Backpack Program. And in honor of Ron and Lindsay Howe, Nikki Kimes has donated $100 to the school lunch angel account. And we would recommend approval of these donations as presented this evening.
Okay. What's the board's pleasure?
This-
Ms. Miller?
I'll make a motion that we accept these generous donations.
Conrad?
I'll second.
Okay. Any comments or questions? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item 18, claims. Ms. Townsend?
Yes, I'm presenting claims tonight totaling $2,942,026.13 for your approval, please.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Cunningham.
I make a motion to approve the claims as presented.
Okay. Need a second?
Second.
Mr. Crouch.
Can we stop right there?
Sure can.
Did you young people hear that?
How much was it?
The bills that come in to pay the teachers and to keep you in electricity in your buildings and keep your buildings nice and all this stuff that is for you. For this, how many week period?
Well, this would be 3 weeks.
For this 3-week period, it was $2,900,000.
2.9 million, $2,942,026.13.
That's what your community thinks of you. Pretty important people. I guess you're the most important people in here.
Anybody else? Okay, we got a motion on the floor, properly seconded. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Correspondence and other business, Mr. McKenzie.
Yeah, I have a few items, but before I go into that, I want to go back to Mr. Crouch's comment. Our budget annually is just slightly over $20 million. Is that correct?
Yes.
And so tonight's claim was a little larger than normal, but $20 million is our annual budget to run this school corporation. So just for your information and edification. So I hope everybody had a wonderful Christmas and holiday season. I want to wish everyone a Happy New Year, and we hope your 2020 year is very successful and prosperous and that everybody's healthy. This coming Monday is Martin Luther King Day, and as of now, there's no school for students on that day. The only exception to that would be if we have to cancel school between now and next Monday. So I've looked at the weather forecast. It looks pretty good for this time of year. So I feel reasonably safe as you can in Indiana during the winter that you'll have Monday off. But we will still be in session next Monday as a school board. We will start at 6 o'clock with a public meeting on our finance committee. And then following that will be the regular scheduled school board meeting at 6:30. I want to end by making a sobering statement that this past Thursday morning we lost a tremendous public servant for Mississinewa Community Schools. Mr. Charlie Fisher, who the football field is named after, started his career in teaching at Mississinewa in 1954, and he taught for 40 years with Mississinewa Community Schools. He coached the varsity football team for 36 of those 40 years. He's in the Indiana Hall of Fame for his football coaching and for his playing days in Evansville as a high school player and as a college outstanding athlete. He will be missed. He also served on this school board for 20 years. So 60 years of his life was dedicated in the service of Mississinewa Community Schools. I don't know of anybody who approaches that kind of legacy and service and dedication to one community. So the funeral service will be this Saturday at Mississinewa High School. The plan at this time is to hold that in the cafeteria, and the visitation will begin at 11, and the service will begin at 1 o'clock. So I don't know that I can say enough words to adequately describe my personal feelings for Coach Fisher. I played for him for 3 years. I coached with him for several years at the varsity level, and I worked with him as an administrator with the school board for 20 years. So he was my coach, he was my partner, my colleague, and he was my friend. And I miss him already. So with that said, that's all I have to say this evening. Mrs. Townsend and Mrs. Winter, you have anything to add?
I have information on rainy day fund that I'm going to give you to look at.
Okay.
If you have any questions, let me know.
Mrs. Winter, you have anything?
No, I do not.
Principals have anything? Okay, that's all we have this evening.
we're going to adjourn, we'll let you ask questions, but I do want to make a mystery, to reveal a mystery to you. This is Mr. 2-hour delay that you hear, that your parents hear.
I'm the voice that you hear.
And he's the guy that calls no school, so if you have any complaints, just see him after the meeting, okay? Okay, item 20 is adjournment.
Terry's not here.
Need a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Miller, need a second? Mr. Smith? He's ready. Okay, any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we're adjourned. Now, I'd like to ask some questions of us. We'll give you a few minutes. We do have another meeting to go to, so if you want to go home, we wouldn't care either, but no, that's. Now, if you want to, seriously, you want to ask a question, just stand up and say, it's a chance. Nobody? Supposed to.
It's tough.
Go, don't be, there you go,
Oh.
yes.
There you go.
Yeah, I see president material there.
That's right, yeah.
Community.
Say that again?
What is it like working for this community?
Well, let's see, you want to answer it?
I'll answer it.
Yeah.
Well, it's like a lot of things. There's good and there's bad sometimes, but for the most part, it's good. It's a way to give back to your community, which usually feels pretty nice. Sometimes it's challenging. If we, probably like you guys, if you make a decision in your school and there might be some kids who don't really like that decision, and so then you may hear about it, right? You might be like, oh, why did you guys decide to do this or whatever? So we get the same thing as board members from people in the community. So sometimes it's challenging, but it's rewarding. We get to see kids, you guys come in, and lots of kids groups come in and show us their work, show us what they can do, show us their talents. So that part of it is very exciting.
Nice question. Good question.
Good question.
Anybody else want to ask one? Anybody else want to comment on that?
Try to think of something that you want to get you guys, try to think of something that you can take to your sponsors and say, we'd like to do this at school. We'd like to do something here that will improve our school. And take it to them, and then you can kick it around, talk about it, vote on it, see where it goes.
How about you? Got a question for us? No? Oh, it's just fun. It's, for service to the community, it's the most rewarding thing you do, really. And if you're going to be, no matter what you do, no matter where you go, it's Gas City, Jonesboro, wherever, you need to be involved, because it takes people like you to do things like this, to be up there. And sometimes you do get some hard questions, but that's what makes this place run, is people volunteering their time, whether it's school board or council meetings or whatever it happens to be, coaches or from anything in the community. Being involved in the community is very important. That's the village we live in. So, anybody else?
I'll make a quick comment. That was a good question, and they're my boss, so it may sound like I'm flattering them because they're my boss, but I'm very close to retiring, so I don't need to flatter them anymore. But I will say this, that people that serve on the school board, and especially these people that I've gotten to know very well, they really care about you and the school doing right by you in your education. They really, really care about that. And most of them either had kids that went through this school district, or they went through this school district, and they love this school system, and they love their community. And they don't do it for the pay. They only get $2,000 a year. Now, that may sound like a lot of money when you're in 7th and 8th grade, $2,000, but when you're an adult, $2,000 doesn't go very far. So they do it because they love their community, they love this school system, and they really care about your education. And they do it in spite of when things do go wrong and people don't like something, either parents or community members or even students, they go to them and complain. And so it's not always a lot of fun to hear people complain. And so, but that's the negative part of their job. that there's a lot of good parts, as Mrs. Miller said, and I know they feel very proud of our school district. We're not perfect. We've still got a lot of things to improve on, but we think we have a pretty good school district, and they're proud of that, so.
Well, anyone else? You guys are just not, I guess then we'll be dismissed, okay? Thanks for coming.
Thank you, everyone.
Mike did a good job with that form. Did a good job with that form.
Yeah, I would have never thought that.
Step on you.
I would have never thought to do what he did.
Oh, yeah, I kind
That's
of,
awesome.
They were just, you know, I think